another time on that last video. I don't remember what I was talking about, but I was done talking about Justin. I was kind of more into the end of society as we know it, understand it, and again, I think it's a great thing, really. Um, I watch a lot of videos about economic arguments from conservatives, and they're always talking about how so many people have been pulled out of poverty since the 80s to now, and they're correct. Our system has been the best up to this point, for sure. But that doesn't make it the best that could possibly be. It just means it's the best that we've done so far. There's always better to be done. They talk about energy and they have no idea, or at least they always avoid the real, you know, the real facts on energy, that big oil industry has bought up every water car patent or Tesla coil patent since the beginning of patent offices, and they've made sure that nothing like that could ever happen legally. Stan Meyer was the only one to hold out against them, and he got poisoned at a Rothschild dinner there a few years back before COVID. His brother went into hiding, they say, but who really knows? But anyways, the technology's buried with him. But it's out there. It's so possible. Anyway, what they did to in response to Stan wanting to give the American government independence from oil to the military. That's what he did. He designed this device that converted all of our internal combustion engines into water combustion engines, and all you had to do is change the spark plugs. And anyway, I watched about the science, and it's very complicated, but very interesting on how he broke down the molecules and how they had open spaces on the broken down molecules, and using DC instead of AC or whatever, using the opposite current that we normally use. It broke down the water molecules in such a way that they exploded inside of the chamber or whatever. Super smart guy. He said that he just received the message from the Lord. I believe that for sure. God put that in his head and showed him how to do it. Anyway, he got murdered in response, and the technology's pretty well gone. I've seen a few people with it, doing YouTube videos and stuff like that, but he did a video of how he took his all apart and cleaned it and put it back together and put it back into his motor. But its byproduct was, if you hooked a wire up to the block, you didn't ground, you actually got power, and the exhaust was clean drinking water. Or you could just put the water, recycle the water back into your own gas tank, not letting out exhaust ever, and the water would never, your device wouldn't have to be cleaned because you'd be running clean water through it. So if you put clean water in and kept the same clean water in there all the time, then you'd just have a self-sustaining car that would just run forever. You just have to change the oil, fluids, whatever. So nobody talks about that. None of these conservative guys that say that they're so, Steven Crowders and the Ben Shapiros and all these guys. I don't know, maybe they're just unaware. But it's not the first time. Stan Meyer was just one of many. He's the most refined and did the most to buy up all the patents. Everything, he bought up every patent surrounding his device that you can't even make it a different way. without going through him. But just more recent, there was a few African girls that did a school project, and they made a generator, 600-watt generator that ran 6 hours. I don't remember how many hours, but it ran on urine, and it ran a long time on a gallon of urine, and that's amazing. And we do it all the time, and people do it all the time. Our race, we keep getting these amazing inventions and amazing ways of doing things that would totally change the world. Utterly and completely change the world. And the whole social dynamic of the world, and the money and the wars and what we're fighting over, all that stuff. Like oil wouldn't matter anymore so much. We'd still need oil, like I said, to lubricate parts and stuff like that, but we wouldn't need fuel anymore. And we could get away from nuclear power. If you put 1,000 motors or big motors into a warehouse and ran them on water, not only would you supply power for a city or town, you would supply clean drinking water for that city or town. Suck it out of a lake or river and pump the power out and pump the water out at the same time, right? And so you could go all along the coastlines and around big lakes and things like this and make these power facilities and send power and whatnot, and clean drinking water out throughout the world, no problem. And you could convert it to burning salt water. Stan's burned salt water. It's just that the device had to be cleaned a lot, like monthly or whatever it was. I'm sure it'd be it would all be based on the amount of hours that it ran that you'd have to clean it, but whatever. So what, right? And you run some of the motors, you could run systematically so that some of them were getting clean water and some of them were getting salt water, and switch that around a bit with some simple valves and save your cleaning time to make sure that you're not cleaning everything all at the same time, and do your shutdowns at night and do your cleanouts at night when the power supply needed is a little lower. And we get battery technology going through the roof right now, that every day every time I turn around, my cordless drill gets better and smaller and lighter and neater. So the same could be put into storing power for towns, cities, whatever. Again, you have a big warehouse with batteries the size of cars in there, that would hold tons of energy, so that if you were on a shutdown doing cleanouts of your motor, of that system, or if the lake ran dry, because that would be another problem where you'd have to stop producing drinking water for the city from that source and start pumping the clean water back into the lake in order to make sure that your lake you didn't kill all the fish and kill the ecosystem, but you'd actually be helping the fish because you'd be sucking the dirty water out, pumping clean water back in for them, and they'd be in a much better position because we've dirtied all that water. So, and then, we have all kinds of solutions for water. Like I was saying, we can use salt water. So you just put tons of these facilities on the coastline. Anyways, even devil's advocates and none of these liberal side, conservative side, none of them really talk about the real issues. They seem to skip over the real solutions, and they talk about these talking points that, I don't know, the way I see it, they talk about the things that they're allowed to within their story content. The whole world's a stage. All that Donald Trump shit, that's just controlled opposition. A lot of people think that he's the Antichrist because people think he's Christ. But I don't think he's either. He doesn't fit the biblical qualifications. But a lot of which, just because of the times, we haven't had the full collapse yet. We have to have the full collapse in order for the Savior to be introduced. The Savior, Antichrist Savior, won't be introduced until after the collapse of the society. He'll be a savior to whatever the fuck Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau and Boris and everybody else does. They're gonna fuck it all up real good, and they are. Hand over fist. They're doing things that most critics, even Geraldo, had to criticize Joe Biden. Like even their lapdogs are getting to finally have to say something, at least a little bit of criticism, just to keep credibility with their own cronies. Because if you don't at least point out some fault in these, just blatant. Joe did a response to his pulling out of Afghanistan and the Taliban taking over that was all about COVID shots. He's purposefully destroying America, big time. And Justin's doing the same thing here in Canada. Debt through the roof, which just did it all by itself, right? Like, totally crippled us. Just a matter of time till people's investments, they start realizing that their investments aren't worth anything anymore. Just a matter of time till people start realizing that their retirement's gone and stuff like that. And like, even the, people that bragged about their stock portfolios and stuff like that, all these years, all that's just going to be paper. You'll be using to light fires with, because you don't know what you're doing lighting fires. Looking for people like me to help Fijis, and we're out there, and we certainly will help. Most of us anyways, who love people. And you're about to learn a lesson, and that'll learn you enough that you'll have a little respect for, though I'm sure a lot of people will get screwed over too by you dummies. But you'll only be screwing yourselves in the long run, because you'll steal from people that could have saved you and kept you alive, and eat too much, and then you won't have anything for the future, and that person will move on or die too along with you, and instead of both of you living within your means, you'll both die because of your lack of knowledge. Vive l'avenir. We shall die together. So, but it's good news that COVID was made in the lab, and it's a weapon formed against us, so it will not prosper. My lighter hits the ground. I'm gonna shut down for another video, because this is gonna take forever to upload.